Background: we were in a serious relationship. Or at least I believed we were, and we were young. But honestly, I still have no clue whether I was the side guy, the main guy, or what our situation really was. So, one day she asked me to respond to a text from her friend on her phone. While I was doing that, she received multiple texts from a couple of people. Since she specifically told me to answer the initial text for her, I decided to go ahead and respond to the others as well. She was getting ready to go out with me and left her phone next to me while she finished getting ready for our date. One guy who had recently been released from prison was texting her, and as I read through their messages, I found out that she was seeing him along with me. But she never mentioned me. I connected the dots and realized that whenever she couldn't see him, she would say she was working, but she was actually with me. This had been going on for months. I mean months. I also discovered that when she told me she was late, even though we weren't doing anything like that, she was actually cheating with this guy. It may sound creepy, but I generally keep track of the girl I'm with, so I know when she's going to be in a bad mood, and when I need to go out and get her stuff for that time of the month. I took screenshots of about 2 months' worth of texts and sent them to myself, but I made sure she didn't find out. I even deleted the screenshots I sent to myself so it would appear as if I hadn't sent anything. Oh, and I almost forgot to mark them as unread, so she wouldn't realize I had seen them. So I've told different versions of this story, leaving out a lot of details. But this is pretty much the whole story. Anyway, we went on the planned date, and that was it. About a week later, when I knew she would be busy, I went to her parents' place to let them know what was going on, and that I wouldn't be seeing her anymore, even though she didn't know it yet. I shocked them, and they were furious with me for breaking up with her through them. Eventually, they calmed down enough to talk to me when I explained exactly what I had discovered and why. I showed them the screenshots I had taken a week ago and suggested they check her phone to see if there was more they didn't know about. I went into detail about what I knew about the person she was involved with and pointed out the reasons why it wouldn't be a good situation for her. They didn't believe me. Or maybe they just didn't want to believe that their daughter could do something like that to a nice guy like me. They resented me for a while, and things got really awkward. So I quickly ended the conversation and left their house. I never looked back, but several months later, they ended up in my checkout line and offered a big apology for what happened. They filled me in on everything that had transpired since that night. I revealed the truth about their daughter. Turns out, they had discovered that she was dating at least 6 other people and had plans to run away with someone else. Just a few weeks after I shared my findings with them, she eventually did run off with a different guy. Different from the guy she was going to do it with, the criminal and myself. She ended up getting pregnant by the criminal, but the guy she ran off with left her. The criminal went back to prison and she found herself pregnant and without a home. Eventually, her parents allowed her to come back under certain conditions. She had to take care of the child, find a job, and not have another child until she was married. Well, it turns out that she never bothered to get a job, and instead let her parents take care of the child while she either searched for a job or was at work. To make matters worse, she ended up getting pregnant with twins from the guy she originally planned to run away with. Her parents had enough of her behavior and kicked her out, providing her with some money to find her own apartment and a car. However, she couldn't hold down a steady job because she was lazy and unreliable when it came to work, constantly missing shifts, showing up late, and breaking rules. Eventually, she lost her apartment and moved in with the second baby's father. But then he kicked her out after she falsely accused him of mistreating her, even though she refused to file a report or take any appropriate action. It turns out the mistreatment never happened, as he had a solid alibi with work and multiple cameras on the other side of the state. Then she was left with her car and kids, so she ended up moving in with a former friend of mine. A few months later, while he was out of the country and at work, which was backed up by cameras and receipts, he received a restraining order and was forced to leave his own house due to a false accusation of mistreatment. Eventually, everything was cleared up, and he was proven innocent, but his reputation took a big hit. As for her, she had to move back into her parents' house because she couldn't find enough work to support herself. It was a complete mess of a relationship, that's for sure. I guess my small victory was that I managed to escape that situation and even played a part in getting her kicked out of that house at least once. Just a couple of years ago, she reached out to me, hoping that we could mend things and make amends. She exploded on me and hurled every insult in the book, accusing me of abandoning my children even though she refused to allow a DNA test to prove their parentage, which, by the way, they aren't mine. I still don't have any kids. She painted me as a terrible person. My revenge was exposing her true nature for everyone to see. Now here's the worst part. This whole ordeal ended shortly before my grandpa passed away, around 3 months prior. So the following March, I was responsible for organizing the memorial service. Throughout this entire period, there was absolutely no contact between us since our fight, which occurred about 3 weeks after our breakup, as mentioned in the next section. Can you guess who unexpectedly showed up? If you guessed her, you're absolutely right. After I had already spoken, and others had taken over, I found myself sitting alone in the church hallway on the steps where my grandpa had fallen and broken his arm. I tried to calm myself by rocking back and forth, attempting to gather my composure for the final part of the service, but it wasn't working. Tears welled up in my eyes and streamed down onto my blazer. The weight of the day made it hard for me to speak as I was saying goodbye to the man who shaped me into who I am today. The one who was always there for me through thick and thin. He held my secrets and was the person I relied on the most. That's when she showed up, berating me for not inviting her to the service, insisting that it revealed my true nature as a terrible person. She criticized me for refusing to have any contact with her or engage with her in any way. You know, the whole shebang. Can you believe that this horrible woman had the audacity to show up at the service even though I intentionally didn't invite her because she's just terrible? And then she had the guts to confront me after everything that had happened between us and how things went downhill on that very day. But it gets worse. She actually caused a disturbance during the service and had to be escorted out by 2 police officers. She was shouting at them, claiming that she had the right to be there because she loved my grandpa and was a part of his life, and she refused to leave. I decided not to press charges and only had her removed, but looking back, I should have because it would have put her in jail and prevented more people from suffering because of her. Nevertheless, I still got my final revenge. Our relationship took a turn for the worse when we had a final argument, and that's when she began lying to me about various things. I didn't mention it earlier, but I started catching on to her lies, especially when she claimed she didn't want to see me. We didn't spend time together every day since I was in college, so it wasn't an everyday thing. But during that fight, she unleashed a torrent of screams and insults, accusing me of being a terrible person. I couldn't tolerate that behavior for long. I quickly left wherever I was and went back home after a few minutes. Second story? I could write a long story about this, but I'm drunk and too lazy to do it right now. My ex-girlfriend used to be really cool, but when she went to college and joined a sorority, she started partying hard. It happens. We all go a little crazy. I had a friend from high school who was into gaming, and we used to take risks and gamble with each other in CSGO cases. Just a side note, I always ended up losing. He was a great guy with a heart of gold. Interestingly, he ended up going to the same college as my ex. One random party night, my friend spotted my ex-girlfriend going into a bathroom with some random guy at the party. According to him, they were in there for at least 20 minutes. Definitely not playing Scrabble. I trust this guy completely. He's a reliable friend. To make a long story short, he called me the next day and told me the whole story. He kept apologizing the whole time. I was obviously upset because deep down I knew it was true. I thanked him for sharing the information and asked him not to say anything else about it. Let's skip ahead 5 months. My ex-girlfriend's mom had recently finalized her divorce. At this point, I hadn't confronted my ex about her cheating. I'll admit, I was shallow and attracted to her physical appearance and adventurous nature. Yeah, I know, I'm an idiot. One weekend, my ex's mom was out partying with her wine-loving friends. We were all drinking at their house and got pretty wasted. My ex was really into smoking. I smoke a lot too, but it hit me differently. They make me want to crash and sleep rather than hang out, so I usually tried to avoid them. My ex took 4 things in a row and ended up completely zonked out. She stood up and looked like she couldn't see straight, then said, "I'm going to lay down," and went upstairs. So at this point, I'm just chilling in the house that came with the divorce. I'm drunk and relaxing, having a good time. I keep sipping my drink and turn on HBO. Decided to go with good old Entourage. As I'm getting into the show, I hear the door slam open, and it's my ex's mom. My ex's mom was always pretty cool, not drop-dead gorgeous, maybe a 6.5 out of 10, but she was fun to be around, always up for a drink and having a good time. So I'm sitting on the sofa watching Entourage, and I raise my glass to her and say, "What's up?" I've always been good with parents. I crack jokes and I'm polite. She's all lively and says, "Hey, Johnny, you're here." I laugh and say, "Yeah, your daughter's asleep." She sits down next to me and enthusiastically asks, "How's your night?" in a way that's not only too loud, but also emphasizes how drunk she is. I tell her, "Your daughter and I were drinking. She got tired and went to bed." She laughs and jokingly says, "If you touch my tequila, I'll destroy you both, haha." I chuckle and raise my glass, acknowledging the whiskey that's in it. Probably leftovers from my ex's dad's stash. She gets up, grabs the tequila, and returns to the couch saying, "It's only 1 a.m. My cycling class isn't until 1 p.m. Let's keep drinking." Honestly, at this point, I'm torn between the angel and devil on my shoulder. My ex cheated on me, not that her mom would sleep with me now, but I knew I was venturing into uncharted territory. Trusting my instincts, I say, "Fuck it." So we go back and forth, taking about 6 rounds of tequila. The bottle is almost empty. I'm wasted as hell, but I see this as payback for my ex being a crappy cheater. Long story short, we finish that bottle, and I climax twice. I break up with my ex 3 weeks later. I never ducked the mom again, but I left that house feeling vindicated. Third story. So my girlfriend, 31 years old, and I, 41 years old, have been together for a little over 2 years now. When we first got together, we were both recovering from awful relationships and had been enjoying the single life for a bit. I won't get into the details of how terrible my ex was right now, but let's just say her ex, we'll just refer to him as X from now on, was a disrespectful drunk who couldn't keep a job, and he treated her poorly both emotionally and physically. He really messed with her self-confidence, even though she's absolutely gorgeous. He was basically a typical loser. However, they do have a child together, but I'll talk more about that later on. Anyway, after my divorce, I managed to bounce back and find myself in a healthy place. Without any unnecessary drama, I've faced life's challenges over the years and can confidently say that I have my life together. Now, let me tell you about this incredible woman I met. From the moment I saw her, I was instantly drawn to her beauty. On our first night hanging out, I could tell she was going to bring some excitement into my life, in a good way. I quickly developed strong feelings for her, and she felt the same way about me. We became inseparable, enjoying the honeymoon phase, having a blast, living life to the fullest. Our connection was intense, and we had closeness multiple times a day. We created cherished memories, formed a deep bond, and became best friends. It was pure joy. Unlike her ex, I provided her with the security she needed. I bought us a spacious house to live in, took her out on frequent dates, planned amazing vacations, and showered her with gifts and affection. But what matters most is that I have treated her with respect, love, and loyalty throughout our relationship. From the beginning, I knew she had strong feelings for her ex when they were together. I understood that she had once deeply loved him. At first, it didn't bother me, but as time went on, I started noticing that he still has an influence on her. He has the power to completely change her mood and behavior. He gets under her skin. This has made me feel insecure about their past and our own relationship. They share a beautiful daughter together whom I absolutely adore, so he will always be a part of her life. They have to communicate, even though they argue like crazy. Up until recently, my girlfriend has never given me any reason to doubt her trust. She doesn't hide her phone, keeps me updated on her daily activities. She's always home when I come back. We can even track each other's location. Her idea, not mine, but I'm fine with it. You get the idea. There's nothing suspicious there. We haven't spent a night apart in 2 years, until about 2 weeks ago. So for the past month or so, I've noticed that she has been acting much friendlier towards her ex. She doesn't mind talking to him in front of me. They've been getting along well, and she even goes to his place for the child exchange. Normally, this wouldn't bother me, but at the same time, she has been growing more distant and cold towards me. We argue and fight constantly over trivial things. Our bed life has also suffered, and the connection between us just isn't the same. Then, about 2 weeks ago, we had a massive fight. She went out with some friends after work and had a lot of tequila. When she came home around 11:30, she was completely drunk and started yelling and screaming at me. We got into a major argument, and in her drunken state, she decided to leave. Well, I was really worried about her driving in that state, so I started calling her like crazy, trying to get her to stop and come back home, but she wasn't listening to me. So I checked her location, and it showed that she was at her parents' house. I figured she must be okay, so I decided to go to bed. However, I couldn't sleep well, and around 4 a.m. I checked her location again, and she had turned it off. That immediately got me alarmed, so I quickly got up, got dressed, and went out to find her. Just as I was about to leave, she pulled into the driveway. This time she was wasted and clearly had been drinking more. So, naturally, I asked her, "Where the heck have you been?" She climbed into bed, tried to snuggle with me, and passed out. Now, normally I'm not the type to snoop through my partner's phone, but I had to find out where she had been drinking all night, so I took a look. I didn't find much on her phone except for an incoming call from a no-caller ID number right before she got home at 4 a.m. She had a conversation with this person. I decided to wait until the next day to talk to her about it, hoping that I would be calmer and she would be more sober. When I confronted her, she insisted that she didn't remember who it was and was firm in her belief that she went to a girlfriend's house. So let's skip ahead to the other night. My ex calls me completely wasted and starts spilling the beans. Apparently, she went to his house that night, also completely wasted, and they had a whole emotional roller coaster. According to him, they laughed, cried, and even kissed. He knew all the details, like the exact time she arrived, around midnight, right after she left our place. And then, around 3:30 a.m., she suddenly got all emotional, got dressed, and took off. He didn't hold back on sharing the juicy details with me. Here's my dilemma. Normally, I'm the type of guy who just observes and lets things play out. But this time, I confronted her about it. She's been adamant that none of it happened. She looked me right in the eyes, tears streaming down her face, and swore that she didn't go to his house. According to her, she was at her friend's place. She's been consistent in her story. My heart wants to believe her because I know her well and don't think she would straight up lie to me while looking me in the eyes. I think only an evil person would do that. On the other hand, her ex is a known liar, but logically, when I think about it, her story just doesn't add up. His does. It seems like she was cheating on me with her ex. I'm head over heels in love with this girl, but I'm completely torn and confused. I've been completely faithful to her. Update. The consensus was pretty much the same across the board. Your replies gave me the courage and confidence to stand my ground and demand some answers, the truth regarding this situation. I needed unbiased opinions from others, and you all delivered. It's always easier to see the bigger picture when you're removed from the situation, which is why I reached out here. Today, after reading several of the replies, I simply looked at her and said, "I know." She immediately started crying. At first, she vehemently denied it and even got angry with me. However, I held on to the logical aspect and didn't let my emotions cloud the path to the truth. I explained to her how terrible it is that they have put me in this situation and that I never asked for any of it. Finally, I told her that we couldn't move forward until she confessed to what happened, that I would never be able to get over it without proof, one way or another, and that it takes an evil individual to cheat and then blatantly lie about it. I made it clear that it should be my decision whether I wanted to continue the relationship or not. Well, that broke her. She finally admitted that she went to his house that night. She insists that nothing physical happened between them, which is ridiculous. But honestly, it doesn't even matter anymore. She cheated on me and then lied straight to my face about it. All those promises of trust, forever together, not wanting him, and never wanting to hurt me flew right out of the window. She looked me dead in the eyes and swore on everything that she didn't go to his house and that she was at her friend's place that night. I'm actually more bothered by the heartless lie she told me afterward than the fact that she cheated. I'm done with her, and I feel good about my decision considering the betrayal I experienced. It was the uncertainty that was tearing me apart. I've given her some time to sort out her affairs and move out because of her child. Luckily, as some of you mentioned, I have no financial ties to her. Everything is in my name. Come on, I'm not that dumb, haha. So, I guess the lesson for anyone reading this in the future is to never let your emotions cloud your judgment or prevent you from reaching reasonable conclusions. Thank you all once again.